I know that when I wake up, I smell myself. I don't smell great. Okay, I know what it's like to eat. You have this familiarity of what existence is, but you don't know what the hell it is going to be afterwards. Maybe it's something you can't even wrap your head around. Probably is.
I'm in Brooklyn preparing comfort food for comedian, history buff, and YouTuber Tom Delgado.
It's like home. That's the beautiful thing about food. You just eat it and you feel like you're somewhere else.
Tom boldly altered his career trajectory from being a lawyer to a more fulfilling career.
These people aren't that good. I could be not good too. That's not hard to do.
And harbors a self-reflective attitude when it comes to a life well lived. This is Last Meal, where I prepare the dish my guest would want if it were their last.
Tom, your last meal is a churrasco steak with a chimichurri and gallo pinto.
Well, gallo pinto is the national dish in Nicaragua. My parents are both Nicaraguan. I just grew up eating this every meal. Like, you eat this for breakfast, lunch, dinner. You eat it with eggs. You eat it with chicken. You eat it with everything. So it's like home, and I guess that's the beautiful thing about food. You just eat it and you feel like you're somewhere else. And then the churrasco is that's like the fancy dish. So there's a really great restaurant in Nicaragua. They have one in Miami now too. It's called Los Ranchos, and that was our favorite place to go growing up. They come around with huge bowl of gallo pinto, and they just pile it on your plate until you say stop. And then they come around with a huge bowl of plantains, and they pile them on your plate until you say stop. They bring you the meat, and then they come around and bring you the sides. And I just remember being like, this is amazing. So like bottomless gallo pinto, you just get, a mountain of it. It's great.
That's the most convincing argument I've heard for going to Florida.
Yeah.
So far.
Sure. You need them now. You need convincing arguments at this point.
I'm not a big Disney World guy.
Sure.
So,
No. Yeah, of course.
Now, you actually started out as a lawyer.
Yeah. So I took the bar in New York, passed the bar, and I was a licensed attorney and all that stuff. I worked in-house kind of writing more than I wasn't in the courtroom. So I guess technically wasn't practicing. So my hours weren't terrible, but I hated it anyway. Just dealing with contracts and intellectual property and stuff. And then I started doing stand-up at night and just kind of fell in love with that. But before that, I'd taken classes in improv. I took classes in writing, all kinds of stuff. And I just kind of found stand-up to be the most fun out of all of them and just kind of kept doing that. Few years of juggling the two. I started doing auditions for commercials, all kinds of stuff, literally running. I would run from the office or run back, sweat, and just sneak into the office and sit down. And I booked a couple things, and then got to a point where I was like, all right, I'm going to give this a shot, and quit. And I saved up money. And then I ran out of money.
That's a lot of people's stories a lot of the time.
I know. New York has a way of just draining your bank account. Yeah.
Because I imagine it would be like a financial adjustment going from being a lawyer to a comedian. So
that's a very mild way to put it. A financial adjustment. I'm sitting up at night I don't know how I'm going to have health insurance, and it's a financial adjustment. Yeah. It was a financial
for my charitable angles.
Yeah, it's very nice. Thank you for the euphemism. I guess I appreciate it.
But, obviously there must have been some deeper motivator to get into doing something like that.
Yeah.
Despite the money.
Yeah, of course. I think for me, it was really just a matter of sanity. More than a desire to do something, it was a desire not to do something. I just hated what I was doing, and I wanted to do something else. And I didn't know where it was going to lead me. I didn't know what I was going to end up doing. I would be at my office and I would see the people who were in their 40s and stuff doing that. And it would make me want to puke, imagining myself getting to that age doing the same thing. I just couldn't see myself doing that. So I had to get out. I had to find a way out. I didn't know how, but I eventually did.
Yeah. Do you remember your first comedy gig?
I took a stand-up class. I remember taking a class because I was too afraid to get on stage without someone pushing me in the familiar confines of academia, But I do remember going to my first open mic, and I remember going to that. And what was the most eye-opening thing was, I remember going and seeing it, and in your mind, you're like, oh, stand-up and comedy, whoa, it's so hard to get into, and this, that, and the other. I remember going and seeing it and being like, these people aren't that good. I could be not good too. That's not hard to do. So I might as well just come here and be not good with these people, and then maybe down the road,
I could be not good too.
But that's the beautiful thing of seeing how the sausage is made. You're like, yeah, everyone's not good at the beginning.
How the hell did you end up doing tour guiding then?
Well, I started doing tour guiding because I ran out of money, pretty much. I left, I'd saved up a bunch of money. I was like, oh, this is great. So I lived in New York for, like a year, and I was like doing all this stuff, and I was like, this is fun. But then I ran out of money. I was like, okay, either go back to law or do something else. And I didn't want to go back to law. So I had a couple friends who were tour guiding, and they were comedians as well. And they told me, you should try this. This is great. It's an easy job, and it's fun and interesting. And I was like, all right. So I took the test. You have to take a test in New York. It ain't no bar exam, I'll tell you that. It's not not the hardest test in the world, but I guess the whole point is to filter out, insane people, and that's fine. I guess I slipped through the cracks, exactly. But yeah, I passed, and just studying for the test, I was like, this is the coolest thing ever, man. I'm just like studying history for a living, pretty much, and I'm like, wow, this is amazing. So from there, I was just hooked. And I started tour guiding, and I started just reading nonstop about New York and studying, going to museums and becoming guide, whatever. And yeah, and it was just great. And then meeting people from all over the world and sharing, stories and all that stuff's great. Yeah.
You are a big history buff. Have you always been a history buff? Did that precede your tour guidism?
Kind of, yeah. I was a history buff. I was a political science major in college, and that was always interesting to me. I took a bunch of history classes. I was almost a history major, but yeah, I was always a history buff. I remember, in end of high school, you read I read A People's History of the United States, Howard Zinn.
Howard Zinn, yeah.
It's
great
just,
book.
yeah, that book just completely, that kind of showed me what history could be and what it is actually, And then since then I was like, yeah, history's, it's the best. I mean, history, it encapsulates everything. Like, yeah, there's science, but then there's the history of science, and the history of religion, the history of history is something that just kind of weaves its way into everything that we know. It's time. That's all it is. It's the study of everything within time and how it progresses, how it devolves, how whatever. But it's amazing. It's great.
Speaking of time,
yeah.
If you had to live your life in a different era, what would that era be?
I feel like if you go back to any time period, people are going to think you're a freak. I wonder. So let me clarify. Can people see me? Am I interacting with people, or am I just watching?
Absolutely. You're living your life completely.
Okay. Because then it's kind of like, that the saying, you can never go back. You can't go back because then you're like out of, people are going to look at you as a freak just for thinking like women are equal or something. It's like, what the hell? Like, you're just going to be hitting so many walls. But I guess just for purposes of just observing, I don't know. I guess I think the early United States, like when it, obviously it was a pretty terrible time for a lot of people, Native Americans and slavery and all this stuff. But I think that time period in the history of the United States was so, it was just kind of pulsing with energy, and like it was, so much stuff was happening, and there was so much possibility and so much kind of, yeah, it was so much unknown. Like, this was the last big frontier, like complete frontier. Like, there was, what's going to happen with this? And you had all these different countries coming in, and what are they going to do, and fighting over what's going to happen with what. And also just seeing what it would have been like what would Manhattan Island look like? What would, Brooklyn look like? What would these places look like back then? And the people, and, the interaction between Native Americans and the Dutch and whatever is just, I don't know. I guess that would be kind of interesting. I'd hide though. I think I would hide away. I don't think I'd make myself known. I think I'd probably be like put in the
Two guys from the Northern Army be like, is that guy behind that?
Yeah.
Is that Tom Delgado?
Who's that weird guy with the, what's that? Is those sneakers? He called them sneakers. He's wearing, we got to put him in jail. Burn him at the stake. He's a witch.
You mentioned the word pulsating there when referring to like early American history, but I've also heard you describe New York in that way.
Yeah, I guess I always kind of thought of it as like a big organism. I always think of, because it's such a transient city and people are always coming here and leaving and coming and leaving, it's almost like it's breathing, and people come, and because it's so difficult here and so expensive, loud, dirty, whatever, it gets rid of the carbon dioxide and brings in the oxygen. The people who are excited, oh yeah, I'm coming to New York, I'm gonna make it, and then they're like, I'm not, and then they leave, and then more people come in and more, and it's just kind of like, and it keeps itself energetic that way.
Yeah, and there's a refresh rate.
Yeah,
there,
right.
Isn't there? And
right.
What did you suppose that was? You had an idea of?
You have 8.5 million people just crammed into the space, from all over the world, literally every single place in the world represented here. you know, it's dirty, it's loud, there are different types of people, there's fights, there's crime, there's this, there's expensive, whatever. And it has to be difficult. If New York was 75 and sunny and, you know, whatever, it would be a nightmare. It would be like more of a theme park than it already is. It'd be a retirement home theme park.
People would just stay.
People wouldn't do anything. They would just be like, yeah, whatever, I'm just going to hang out and whatever. It's not, you know, I think it kind of has to be tough. And I think if anything, that just kind of shows how great of a city is when it is that bad in so many ways, but people still keep coming here.
That's a really good point.
You know, like I mean, imagine if it was like Rio de Janeiro outside, just beautiful, all this, then it wouldn't be the same. You know, like New York can say, yeah, we're this crappy, and yeah, you're still going to want to come here. What? Tell me I'm wrong. Where's the lie?
You have some interesting ways of maintaining a good grasp on your own well-being. The first that I detected when watching a lot of your YouTube videos was that for a while now you have carried a flip phone instead of a smartphone.
Oh, sure, yeah. By the way, thanks for watching the YouTube videos. Watch the YouTube videos. Check it out. Smash that like button. But no, I do have a flip phone. I got it like a year ago. You know, here it is. Check it out. Pretty sweet, huh? You're jealous? Yeah, pretty nice. That's very satisfying, by the way. That sound, you hear that? That's very nice. You can't.
Yeah, I remember that sound.
Anyways, I got a flip phone. I still have the smartphone. I just use it like a iPad. That's what it is. It's a computer. So I just use it like a computer. You leave it at home most of the time. I use it with Wi-Fi. Even when I take it out with me to use the camera or something, I still can't access all the apps and phone and texting and all that stuff because it's not plugged to Wi-Fi when I'm out. So it's great. It's changed my relationship with the phone a little bit. God forbid being alone with my thoughts out in the real world. So
yeah, how has it changed your day-to-day life since making that switch?
I read more. I actually, and believe it or not, this is going to sound ridiculous, but it's helped my attention span. I actually am able to sit and read for longer periods of time than I was before. I can sit still, like just sitting on a bench waiting for this train to come or read or whatever and just kind of look around. I don't know. It just makes me more present. You know, it also makes texting harder. I can't just send texts all day and like, hey, what are you up to? It's more functional. And if I wanted to get into something with someone, I call them, which always is an interesting response. Everyone's like, are you okay? Are you kidnapped? Why are you calling me? You know, I guess everyone's so unfamiliar with being called anymore. But
have you ever tried calling someone under 30? It's a fucking nightmare. Yeah. They won't pick up.
No one ever picks up. People barely text back at this point. Or is that just me? But no, it is like you call people and it's it's always a surprise. But you know what? It's so nice to talk to people on the phone, man. Like I've forgotten, and I'm talking to people on the phone now that I never talked to on the phone, that I would always just text with. I'm like, oh, I'm talking to this friend who was, you know, it kind of like brings them over from the acquaintance side onto the friend side a little quicker if you're talking to them on the phone.
Yeah. So. A friend of mine has I only learned this recently, has like I think he said it was a 3 or 4 text rule, which means that if you send him more than 3 texts, he just calls you.
Right.
And I love that. I love that.
I think you're going to say you send him 3 texts, he stops being your friend.
You're out of my life.
Yeah, exactly. I'm tired of you. Yeah. Too much.
What do you think we carry with us that we could realistically do without?
Like physically? Or just everything? Clothes. Let's get like, I don't know. I guess I don't know. That's a tough question. I guess I think people here especially just need too much. You know, like we're so unfamiliar with scaling down. It's always like, what's the next thing? Like you start making more money, next level, and it never ends, you know? Like how much do we all really need, you know? It's like that. I think this idea that everything, you know, moving up is tied to stuff and just having more stuff. I don't know. I think that there's something misplaced or misguided, you know, especially in New York. You see the excess here. I had a joke about there's a hotel room in New York that costs $75,000 a month. I'm sorry, a night, $75,000 a night for a hotel room, one hotel room. There's people that pay that. You know, the joke was that, you know, the place has heated floors, which I could kind of understand because if you're willing to pay $75,000 for one night hotel room, your feet are probably well accustomed to the burning coals of hell. Because, you know, I mean, it's insane though. Like, I mean, really, like that's what I'm talking about though. Like it all goes to this place where you just do stuff because you can.
I think if you can,
that to me is like a symptom of a sickness. That's what
Yeah.
it is to me. It's a symptom of a sickness of a country, of a city, of a society, or whatever, where that is an actual symptom. You know,
Yeah, I mean, if you could afford to pay $50,000 a night, you'd probably pay 75, and at that point, it just becomes a pissing contest.
yeah,
between
it's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. But then that's my whole point. It's like
Yeah.
it's not even about having anything. It's about materialism. It's about a pissing contest. It's about stuff that has nothing to do with eating food and sustaining yourself or taking care of you and yours. Or it's just this selfish, completely, I don't know, self-absorbed way of looking at the world that I think is kind of sad, And meanwhile, the country that has so much and has people that can spend 75K, there are people starving to death. There's, so much concentrated at the top, so little at the bottom. It's really kind of messed up,
What do you think with smartphones and social media by extension? What kind of effects do you think this is having on us as a society?
You look at like Twitter and all this. Twitter, the way it was a huge role in like the Arab Spring, and all the revolutions going on. People were, let's meet at this square, let's do this. Like that's how the messages got out. That's how people were able. Like it was a big part of it. It's a way to connect people. It's a way to send out information across huge amounts of distance. However, that's supposed to be the means to the end of bringing people together in person or spreading actual important information. But once it becomes the end, which is what it has become, then it matters how many people are follow me. I have to be posting this much amount. I have to be this popular on here. I have to work at this rather than use this to do something else, And I think that's where we are kind of right now. It's become the end in itself. Everyone wants to know what you are there as opposed to what you're using that for out here.
It's really interesting because, you picked up on something there, which was just like, it incentivizes people but also to be posting constantly and everything like that. And, you would have at least some relationship with this, having a, well-furnished YouTube channel and everything like that.
Well furnished. I like that. That's nice.
Yeah. But your videos seem pretty considered. And there is a culture around these days that is anything but, in which the algorithm rewards people to just be posting constantly, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes those things are not very well considered, some of that content, I
Yeah.
guess. But they're rewarded for that. And I often think that it's kind of incentivizing inauthenticity in a way. So do you think that as a society, one of the second order effects of social media in particular is that we're in danger of losing our authenticity?
There's always a danger in any art form to lose your authenticity. You just pander to the lowest common denominator, right? Van Gogh was complaining about the artists back in the late 1800s that they were selling out or whatever. It's always been kind of a thing. I guess the difference now is everyone's on social media. Everyone's an artist. Everyone's an artist. Everyone's, a brand. I guess that's the big thing everyone's calling it. So now everyone is in that same rat race, and yeah, it rewards frequency. It rewards frequency. It rewards eyeballs. It rewards people, so why not just everyone put porn online pretty much? And that's kind of what's happening. Everyone's funneling. People are going like, you go online and there's painters who are painting in thongs. They're painting their paintings. That's where you buy them. You buy them on Instagram. There's, people on OnlyFans or whatever. Everyone's trying to find their way to make a living, whatever. And the easiest way, I guess, is to appeal to the basest instincts, I guess. And yeah, not to judge anyone, but I guess that's where the pressure is. The pressure is to.
I've had plenty of conversations with people about the advent of artificial intelligence and how it relates to artists, I guess. Usually we're talking about visual artists, but what about comedy? Like, do you ever think that an AI could write just consistently better jokes than any comic on the planet?
Well, it depends on what you're looking for. I've never used AI. I know people who have used it, and it can write a joke in the sense that like A plus B equals C. Like there's a formula to jokes, and sometimes the joke's clever. But I think, that's I think the key of doing anything for an amount of time. You find your own voice. And once you find your own voice, that can't be copied. They can write jokes in your voice, but that person is going to try to deliver them and it won't work the same. That's just that. But that takes time. Every comedian, when they first start 1 year in, 2 years in, they all you can tell like, oh, that guy's trying to be Zach Galifianakis. He's trying to be Bill Burr. He's trying to be whoever. But after a while, you find your own voice after falling on your face a lot. And that never stops. but you eventually find your own voice, and then you become then you can't really, then people can't steal your act. They can steal a joke if it's a funny little A plus B plus C whatever, but your actual, you know, product, they can't copy completely.
Yeah. It becomes almost impossible to emulate something
Yeah.
as specific and niche.
Right. But AI is going to be used, I'm sure, to write scripts, because you see some of the crap online, like Netflix, whatever. There's some pretty bad stuff on there that AI could write, you know, and it's like, oh yeah,
That I
okay.
suspect has been written by AI.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. But some of these sitcoms and documentaries you watch, and you're like, this is terrible. Like, yeah, of course they could write it. It's pretty simple. There is a formula to a lot of this stuff, and you teach the AI a formula, you show them enough scripts, and they can write something, and they probably do already. But the good stuff won't be. I think the important thing is that we demand the good stuff. We continue to expect the good stuff, because that's one of my fears, is that people have just gotten like complacent, like, oh yeah, it's another Marvel movie. I'm going to go see it. I'm going to go see this. Like, AI could write a Marvel movie. You know, it's been done so many times. Like, but I guess if we're not consuming good stuff, then why would good stuff get made? Especially when the bad stuff can be made so easily.
I'm waiting for the AI that will just watch a Marvel movie for me, because I don't want to fucking do it. Do you think comedy is funnier live?
Yes.
Like-
Stand-up comedy is funnier live. Yeah.
And do you think that's an objective truth?
I don't know if it's, it's objective. What is objective?
Yeah.
How much time you got? Huh? But what I will say is that stand-up comedy is a live art form. That's where it lives. And when you see it on TV, it's still a live performance that you're watching.
Of course.
Because the audience is part of it. Like that laughter, the energy, all that stuff is part of it. That's how not only you get the rhythm of the show, but you also get the energy from the comedian. A comedian does his best work when he's on stage doing well in front of an audience, because he's working with them. He's working off of their energy.
I think, maybe what I mean by objective truth when I say that is there something about being in an audience with 20, 100, 200 other people? There's like an energy there.
Yeah.
And when other people laugh, you kind of feel that energy as well. And I don't know. Every time I've gone to see comedy, I thought to myself, would I find this funny if I was watching it on television? And the answer ranges between probably not to maybe, but not as much.
It's not necessarily you wouldn't find it funny. It's that you wouldn't laugh out loud the same way. It's that you wouldn't feel the same thing. You wouldn't feel the excitement. You wouldn't feel the like, hey, what's up? It would still be funny. A plus B equals C. Like, oh, that's a well-written joke. Haha.
That's more objective than I was even intending.
But I'm saying, like, it would be harder to get that laugh out of you. It would be harder to get that feeling, and also that communion, not to get too heady, but that communion with the audience of this, this kind of like you're sharing this moment, this laugh or whatever.
Do you think you'll always be a comic?
I don't know. Who knows? I mean, I love doing stand-up, but like right now doing the videos is so great. It takes up a lot of my time, and I'm open to a lot of different things. I've always wanted to do more than one thing. In fact, when I started out doing stand-up, I was only doing stand-up, and I didn't like just doing that. So I started acting, I started doing this, I started writing, I produced a couple of plays, produced a couple of short films, all this stuff. And then I started making the videos, and I loved that. Kept doing stand-up and still do that, but it's just I like doing more than one thing, and whether that keeps me from flying up the charts in stand-up or flying up the charts in whatever YouTube videos or whatever, and just keeps me kind of slowly, then that's fine.
What is one lesson that, had you learned it earlier in life, would have changed the trajectory of your life?
I guess just trusting myself a little bit more. I think trusting myself, and without caring what people think. So much of my life was keeping things down, like what I wanted to do, what I wanted to try, what I thought was interesting, and I guess because I didn't think that was correct, or I didn't think that, and I think just trusting that and letting it go, like, oh, I had this great discussion with this person about this thing. Well, maybe I should do that thing or try this thing or whatever. And so much of my life was me doing things in spite of that. Just do it. Trust that instinct and just go, I'm slowly starting to get there.
If you did learn that lesson earlier, what would you have done differently?
I always have trouble with questions like that, like going back, because I don't really, I guess I don't regret anything. I think everything got me to where I am. I guess it's more important to like think about that lesson and just apply it going forward.
Trust yourself.
Yeah, just trust myself and keep trying to push myself. to trust myself, because it's also never ending. You're gonna, as you go up in any career, the audiences get bigger, the challenges gets harder, and the dangers get more dangerous. So you're always going to be constantly have to push yourself past certain limits. So just keeping applying that same lesson.
What do you think happens to us after we die?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think that's what makes it.
No, I know you don't know. I don't know either.
Oh, you're not asking me for the answer. Okay.
Yeah,
Well, that takes a load off my back. I really thought you really knew. I knew. But no,
if you had to, your best guess.
No, I don't think anything.
Do you fear death?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Sometimes it's difficult to conceptualize whether we fear death or whether we fear not existing.
Yeah.
Because
or just fear the unknown. That could just simply be the unknown. It's like, maybe you wouldn't fear not existing if you knew that the next existence would be different or would be better. Yeah. So maybe it's just the unknown. It's like, I don't know what there is, and I know that when I wake up, I smell myself. I don't smell great. My food, okay, I know what it's like to eat. Like you have this familiarity of what existence is, but you don't know what the hell it is going to be afterwards. So that fear, and maybe it's something you can't even wrap your head around. Probably is. So I don't know.
Well, Tom Delgado, we really appreciate you coming for Last Meal. It's been an honor, and I hope to see you again soon.
Thank you. You're going to make me blush. But thank you, and thank you for cooking this meal. I can't wait to eat this. I'm hungry. I've been talking a lot.
Let's do it.
Listen to me ramble.
Tom Delgado takes an intentional approach to life that I very much admire. He seems to see more than others and take little for granted, something that can become increasingly difficult to do if you're not paying attention. And that's all from me.